Honoring the Journey is sponsored by Choircast, part of Choir Publishing. Choir is a community of authors, podcasters, and creatives who tell stories that stretch our imagination, deepen our compassion, and expand our faith. Many voices, one message, Choir. Discover more at choir.com. That's QUOIR.com. Hello, friends. Welcome back to Honoring the Journey. I'm Leslie Neese, your host, and today we are being joined by somebody very, very, very special to me. We know each other, and we've known each other for a while, a long time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, long time. But honestly, I think maybe I've seen you a handful of times in my life, but I just feel like I know you. We're heart sisters. Her name is Nicki Pappas. She is a writer. She's an actress. She is the host of Broadening the Narrative, which is it's a podcast a lot like this one, actually. She interviews people from all different viewpoints, and they talk about just broadening the narrative of someone's life. And it's really great. And she's interviewed a lot of the people that I know in my life. So Nicki, welcome to Honoring the Journey. I'm so glad you're here today.
I'm so glad to be here. And full disclosure, I have been low key being oh, I would love to be a guest on Honoring the Journey. And so when you asked me, it was the easiest yes because I've been longing for it in my heart. So
Yay. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I know you're gonna encourage my listeners so much, and they're so precious to me. All of them just curious, which is my favorite word in this season of my life. I can't wait to dive into your journey because I know we've kind of had some intersections along the way, but I don't really know a lot about Nicki before I met Nicki. So can you tell me a little bit what it was like growing up?
yes. So I'll try to give the condensed version. But I grew up in a Southern Baptist church, but it wasn't as fundamentalist as what I ended up going into when I left home, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
In the sense that, my grandma ran so many things in the church, and the only thing I feel like she didn't do was preach, right? And so women
Right.
weren't allowed, quote unquote, allowed to be preachers. However, we had this one women's Sunday in church when I was in high school, and I was asked to speak, not preach, but to speak.
Yes, it's
And
very
I
different.
and I got to stand up there and do what a preacher does. And I remember that being such an impactful moment for me as a teenager to be able to use my voice to speak to this congregation of mostly my family, because
Mhm.
again, small Baptist church in the South. And so I grew up with a lot of things that you've talked about on your podcast. I listened to your episodes, your recent episodes with Michael Gungor
Mm.
and the one with Melinda Hale.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you talked about the things you taught your kids, it's
Yeah.
interesting because my parents didn't have a whole lot of specific instruction in those things, but
Mhm.
especially my youth group was very impactful in a lot of the things that I came to believe about the rapture and getting left behind and about hell. And so
So
I
traumatic.
carried this deep fear in my body about being left behind to the point where I came home from school one day and couldn't find my mom or my brother. And so I was
Mm.
convinced they were taken and I was left behind. And I carried that fear with me even after I had gotten married. And if my um, husband at the time, if he was late, then I thought he has been taken and I've been left behind. And
Yeah. Oh,
so,
yeah. Yeah.
whew, but
It's a
yeah,
lot.
and hell,
Oh,
hell was such a scary, scary thing. And I
yes.
kept thinking, am I actually saved or have I deluded myself into thinking I'm saved?
Yeah, because
Right.
they tell you only God knows your heart. You don't even know your heart. So then I'm like, well, does that mean I didn't really mean it when I said the prayer? Or does it, what if and then you're like, how do you believe harder?
You're right. And how many times can
Ah,
you rededicate your life to the Lord? Is there a limitation
does he finally
here?
go, I don't think you mean it. I just don't think you mean it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I was that person who
Yeah.
carried a lot of anxiety in my
Mm,
body. And
I'm sorry.
so then I ended up at a church that we both know, and I won't talk about the name of it or anything like that, but it ended up being a very harmful space for me. And at the same time, I can hold that I learned a lot of really good things there and met a lot of really great people there, right? The both and of it all.
Yes.
And so for 10 years, I was in a more like they wouldn't have said they were fundamentalist, but it was
Mm.
reformed theology. They allowed women to be deacons, whereas like my Southern Baptist church wouldn't have given that
Whoa.
concession. So it's like you they wouldn't have wanted you to call them progressive by any stretch of the imagination, but it was like with a
Yeah.
quote biblical basis, they allowed women to be deacons. Now, did they stand up there and say women should be deacons? We need women at the table. No, but women are allowed to. You could put a woman's name forward as a deacon. And for 10 years, I was there. I served faithfully and joyfully, do all things without grumbling or complaining. And this was my family and my support network and all the things. And I got really entrenched in narratives around, oh gosh, it was a lot of the patriarchy again, even though it's in tandem with women are allowed to be deacons, at the same time, there was such an overemphasis on what women aren't allowed to do, right? And
Oh,
it's like,
yeah.
oh, and the
Mhm.
more I got out of it, the more I'm like, why are we even having a conversation about what women are and aren't allowed to do? But
Mm.
my personal journey, I got married when I was 20. I feel like that is important to put out there for how this particular brand of evangelicalism
Yes.
really pushes this narrative of getting married early and having lots of babies. And
Yes.
I am not here to say to anyone that they should not get married early and that they shouldn't have lots
Right.
of babies. However, when it is couched in this narrative of this is what brings God the most glory, and we are neglecting people's mental health and acting like people don't have limits as far as I can't just have all the babies. My body can't handle it. And
Yeah.
also emotionally, my capacity is spent, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yet there was this continual expectation to do more for God, do more for the church, do more for your family. And I mean, something really impactful for me, there were all these little cracks along the way, right? But it's all the little cracks that make the whole thing crumble
1,000
eventually.
tiny paper
Yeah.
cuts.
Yes, and so that was, like, one of the things, like, my husband at the time asked the pastor, like, "How do you do all that you do?" Because the pastor
Mhm.
was getting his PhD and pastoring a church and had a large and growing family and coached all the things and had a business that he ran with his wife, and the pastor you would think that in this church context, the pastor would say, "Well, God gives me strength." That
Mhm.
there would be an attribution to God for that. That would at least make sense, right? But the answer was, we all can do more than we think we can do. And so that
Right.
was kind of this like eye-opening moment of this church is bent on eking out every ounce of my energy. Like I'm expected to sacrifice everything for this
Yeah.
place. And
Mhm.
yet when I need something, where 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 are the people to show up for me when I am
They're
struggling?
exhausted because 'cause they've been
Yes,
serving so
exactly,
much.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh.
and then we assisted a woman in the church because we were being told that we should be having all the babies, like the women in the church should be having all the babies,
Mhm.
and that you should be staying home with them. Again, that this is God's good design. And so I was staying home with my kids. And so I'd had 3 kids in 3 years, which I 10 out of 10 do
Woo.
not recommend. Okay. It's just a lot on a body. And
Yes. Oh my word.
yeah, and God, 3 under 3, it's just a lot. And then this woman in the church, she was in a very hard situation. And so we thought, well, we'll make sure that she can stay home with her kids. So her and her kids moved in with us. And we thought, like, we are doing the thing that the church is telling us to do, right? We're being the hands and feet of Jesus. And when I tell you, and again, I know the whole church is exhausted, but it was kind of just the same handful of people who showed up to help in any capacity to bring meals, to help out. Because at that point, then we had 3 adults living in our house and we had 3 kids and she had 4 kids. So it's 7 kids. Am I doing the math right? Am
Oh,
I
there you
mathing right?
are. You're
And
mathing.
so,
Woo.
and so there were 10 of us in our tiny house.
Whoa.
And and I don't regret that we did it. But again, it was this reminder that we're being told here's the standard that God is setting. And then I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying that if we're being told that this is what God expects and everyone should be doing in order so that women can stay home, where are all the people who are going to help this woman be able to stay home with her kids? If
Hmm.
you think that this is what God wants her to do, why aren't you helping her be able to do it? Why instead is the rhetoric around it that because she and her ex-husband now, but we're going through all this stuff, and it was like, well, then she needs more support, not she needs to be working. I don't know. It was just, again, a little crack in all of it because there was this cognitive dissonance or this inconsistency between here's what you're telling me and I'm trying to do it, but then no one else is really stepping up to
But
do
I'm
the thing you're
tired.
saying we should
Yeah.
be doing.
Hmm.
And my personal journey included confronting white supremacy, white privilege, whiteness as a construct, a social construct, that we know that it's not real and that it's made up, but it has real consequences and that people
Yes.
are harmed by the system. And so as I began to, it was something I understood, I guess, subconsciously or unconsciously at times, but I was conscious to it
Yes.
starting in about 2016 with Donald Trump's first election
Yeah.
and the woman at our church and some other people, conversations having with those people really helped me to start to understand all of those, which was huge for me. If I hadn't started with that conversation, I wouldn't have then gone into the patriarchy conversation, right? Or gender and sexuality and what is the Bible, right? And so they were really afraid of the quote slippery slope. I know
Oh yeah.
and your
You
listeners will
put your
know
foot
that
on that slippery slope for sure.
the
Yeah.
yeah, and it's like and I took off right down the slope if you want to continue with the metaphor and act like we were up and the only way to go is down, sure,
Yeah.
fine. Um, you know, because even that, Jordan Lukens, do you
Oh
know him?
yeah. Love him.
Okay, yes, yes. And so I was having a conversation with him about it one time, and he's like, "Man, even the terminology of slippery slope sets up this idea that you're starting at the top and you're
Yeah.
going down and the top is better." But anyways, we don't have to analyze the analogy.
No, but it is
Oh,
funny. I did have somebody on who said that the slippery slope is actually a water slide that leads to life. And I was like,
mm,
heck yes. I love that.
yes, I love
Isn't
that
that so
too.
good?
I love it. I love it. It makes it sound so much more fun too.
I know. I
Uh,
know.
But yeah, so I went, quote, "down the slippery slope," and I don't regret it. I don't. Was it hard? Did I end up losing community and friendships and my feeling of belonging and family because this had been my whole network? Yes. And also, I came to this point where I was like, I would rather be alone and free than with people who think that my subjugation as a woman is God's good design.
Mm,
And so, I just began to really love myself, and oh my gosh, and you talked about that in your episode, right? Like self-love, that piece, and that was pivotal for me
so
in
big.
my journey. Okay, well, so first of all, in 2019, left the church I'd been at for 10 years that had slowly taken everything from my personhood, right, to where I just felt like a shell of a person. Left that church after being directly spiritually abused by the pastor, and I'm very open about it. I have a podcast episode about it. I wrote a book about it, my first book, As from
Yeah.
Rich Family, Leaving the Toxic Religion I Was Groomed For. I got that out of me, and then I was like, I'm done talking about it in the sense of if it's gonna help someone, I will share the story and all of
Mhm.
that, and also I was like, I've made peace with that is a part of my story, but that's not where it ends, and it's not my whole story,
Well, you don't want it to
and
have the spotlight on it, you know?
yes,
It's like
exactly.
giving a voice to something that, it
Right.
was important in your journey, but it doesn't define you.
Yes, exactly. And so left there and ended up at another church. And at that church is where I first heard this idea of loving yourself. Of course, I grew up hearing the verse, love your neighbor as yourself, but we never talked about that as yourself piece of it. Right. And I know you
Mhm.
said something about like, because we're told, like, well, you already love yourself, you need to love others.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't love myself. I hated myself. I was so critical of myself. I thought I was a wretched sinner, right? And so went to this other church where they had this mantra, love God completely, yourself correctly, and others compassionately. And so that I was like, Oh my gosh, there's a way
Beautiful.
to love yourself, quote, correctly in the sense of not from a place of ego, not from a
Right.
selfish standpoint, like love yourself. And so that piece I'm still working on, right? And that's the other thing. I have to be really gentle with myself because I'm like, it took 30 years of conditioning to think the things I thought when I left the church. Who knows how long it's going to take? You talked about neuroplasticity and
Woo!
girl, brain
Yeah.
science and brain stuff. I'm so into it. Okay.
Isn't it so
And
fascinating?
it
When
is,
you
and it's
learn
like
about it, you're like, "Of course, that's what I thought. Of course, that's what I believed. Oh
yeah,
my word. This is
yeah,
so incredible," that because I think you do start to wonder when you walk away, you're like, "How did I fall for that?
yes,
What was I thinking?" And it's like, well, you weren't. You were being told what to think over and over and over and over again in songs, in sermons, in reading the same Bible verses over and over again. It's like this thing that eventually just becomes your truth.
yes,
And
yes.
yeah,
And then but there's so much hope in that we can rewire our brains, and that is really cool, right?
it is
And
so
it's
cool.
hard work. It's such hard work, and also it's really rewarding and really beautiful
But it's
to
called opening a door to the enemy in church. They're like, "Oh, you're opening a door to be deceived." And so anytime that you frame that around fear, you've got people who are afraid to start asking questions and
yeah.
start thinking for themselves because they've been told that's Satan. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Well, and that's why I loved that you brought up curiosity. That is one of my core values. You know, curiosity, authenticity, and
Mhm.
vulnerability are three things that I try to root into and do all things from that place.
I love
But
that.
you're right, like a place like the church environments where we came from and all of that stifle curiosity
Mhm.
because curiosity means less control that the system can have over you, not because the people running the system are trying to be
Mm-mm,
malicious.
they're not.
They're not, and
They
that's
think they're
what's
being
scary about
faithful.
it. Yes.
They think they're being faithful. They really think they're protecting,
Yeah,
you and the rest of the people in the church by, not looking into things a little deeper. And
yeah.
I don't know, but when something doesn't sound a lot like a God of love or the way Christ lived his
Mm.
life, to me, I think even if somebody's telling you that it's dangerous to question that, that is the one thing that you have to question.
Yeah.
If it doesn't look like Jesus, guys, it can't be true. It just
Mhm.
can't.
Yeah.
He said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." That means the way I'm living my life is the way we should all live our lives. That is
Mhm.
the truth of it,
Yeah.
but we've, of course, then misinterpreted that whole verse too, but that's a whole nother subject.
Which you talked about with Michael Gungor, so
Yes,
people
I
can go
did.
and check out that
Yes,
episode.
go
I
check it
listened
out.
to that one and, uh, yeah, and so for me personally, yes, that getting curious, asking questions, and I will just, like, disclaimer, I don't know if your audience is going to disown me with this, but it's like I very much call myself right now, um, an open atheist in that I don't follow any God and don't know if I believe in one, yet I'm open and I'm
Right.
seeking and I'm curious. And in that, I I don't know, I hold to certain things from the Bible, and one of those things being that, like, Jesus said, "I came that you would have life and that it would be abundant," right? And so that is another guiding point for me. It's like love and abundance. It's like, does this lead me to feeling abundance? Like, do I feel and again, we know the system teaches us not to trust our bodies, and so I was so disembodied, and so that's been a big part of my journey after leaving the one church and ending up at the one that got me thinking about self-love. That led me into therapy, which, was not something that it was something that was disparaged and
Mhm.
not seen
It
as
was
something that we
worldly.
should go do. Yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
But therapy was great for me while I was
Life
in it,
changing.
and I used a therapist who used internal family systems model of
Mm.
therapy. And
So
so
good.
that was huge for me, and so if anybody is unfamiliar with it, you think of, like, Inside Out and the different emotions being these different parts in the main character Riley's brain, and so I've got all these emotions in me, and I am not my emotions, but sometimes my emotions and these experiences and the little girl in me, right, like, make up this internal family,
Mm.
and I now get to take care of all of those pieces of me and help heal those pieces.
And that's not idolatry. We
Right.
used to be told, like, if you're
Yeah.
focusing inward and trying to work on you, self-help, ooh, no. well,
Yeah.
you need to help others. You need to Jesus first, others second, yourself last,
Right.
then
Right.
you'll have joy. And
Uh,
boy, I turned that on its head too, Nikki.
yes.
Such a freeing
Well, and you
feeling.
talked about it in one of your episodes with that. You were saying like the whole, well, you got to put your own oxygen mask on before you
Yeah.
help someone else. And so, and I think that is that self love is that I had to realize that all along I've been taught to be good at advocating for others
Yeah.
in the name of God, but not at advocating for myself. And now
Mm.
it's like, oh, well, if I'm supposed to love my neighbor as myself, then anything good that I would want to do for my neighbor, I need to be doing for myself.
Yes.
And so loving myself, figuring out what that looks like. What does it look like to love myself? What feels like love to me? And so, yeah, so therapy being huge, and specifically the internal family systems model of therapy, embodiment practices, learning what sensations feel like in my body and what things feel like triggering in my body, and knowing that that's where I need to focus some extra attention if I'm feeling triggered. Right. Even today, oh my gosh, like I'll tell two quick stories that
Yeah, do it.
illustrate my so this one guy that works for a company connected to where I work,
Mhm.
I was talking with him and noticed that our mutual friends on Facebook were from not my from the first church that I went to when I moved here, not the church that I left after being spiritually abused. And
Mhm.
so I was like, "Oh, I noticed we have these mutuals." And he was like, "Oh, how do you know so and so?" I was like, "Oh, she was one of my roommates." And he was like, "Oh, well, I knew her when we went to this church." And I was like, "Oh, I went to that church when I first moved here." So we realized we just missed each other by like a couple of years at that church. Cool. How'd you know the other people? Oh, they were with this Christian organization. And he was like, oh, and I was like, yeah, yeah. And I said, yeah. And I went on a missions trip with that same organization. And he was
Mhm.
like, oh, and so as he's talking, I realized, oh, he thinks that I still think all those same things. And so
Oh,
I said, oh, I'm not in that world anymore. And I was like, I'm actually an atheist right now. We don't know if we can still be friends. And he was like, oh, we can be friends. And then he said, I kid you not, he goes, the way I see it, there's still time for you. And again, I know he means well, but I looked at him and I channeled Alexis from Schitt's Creek and I went, ew, gross. Just like that. This grown man, I'm a grown woman telling him, ew, gross.
oh my
Just
gosh.
to make it uncomfortable in the sense of, again, I know it's coming from a good place, but how we were talking about control starting
Oh,
at the
yeah.
top, and they think that they're saying all the things that are going to keep us in line because they feel responsible for our souls. I get it.
Right,
But
right.
that trickles down into us controlling each other, right? It's like one hierarchy after another.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, I'm like, anytime that I can make a man uncomfortable, I'm super into it. And so, and so I did that, and we laughed about it. It was silly and it was fun. But then I just said to him, I was like, "Listen, I was in that world. I know it all." I was like, "And right now, I'm okay with just going with the flow.
Yeah.
I feel good about my life and where I am right now." And that's enough, right? Like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
this is the life I want. I'm building the life I want.
Well,
And
and
so that
there's no I don't know why I don't know how we made belief into the thing. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
because like to me, and I've said this before, I probably said it last week with Michael, but how it doesn't matter if you believe, because if there is a God, I don't believe that God would be so insecure that if you didn't believe in him, he would be like, well, then I'm not existent. You know what I mean? I think that, or she, people hate when I say that. My mom's always like, anything but that. But
Or ooh, what if we say or they?
they,
They. That
pronouns.
takes it even further. Okay, so continue.
No, 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 I get it. But it is like, to me, really crazy that, because I wouldn't say I'm an atheist, but I am an atheist to the God I was taught about.
Yes, yes,
I'm
yes, yes,
not, I don't still believe in that God.
yes,
That God terrifies me. And I
yeah,
don't think that there's any fear in love. So,
yes,
you know what I mean? Like,
mm,
I
yeah,
have I don't think it matters. I think what matters is, are you living in love? Are you following that
mm,
thread of love?
yeah. So I wanna put a pin into the
Sure.
second story I wanna tell in order to make sure that we talk about Miss Donna, because she was so pivotal on my journey before I left the church that I talked about being spiritually abused at. That's how
Mhm.
I met her, was through all of those connections. And Donna Powell, just I just wanna take a minute to to think about her and the joy and the love and the kindness that she exuded in the way that she didn't disown me and she didn't act like, anything. So she had told me when she was going through her chemo and we were talking one day, she said, "We make things so complicated, but it all comes down to love." And again, I'd been hearing my whole life about God and God's love and love your neighbor as you love yourself. But there was something in the simplicity of how she said it and just the matter of factness by which she stated it. Hey, we make things so complicated, right? We get caught up in all the rules and in the beliefs and all this, but it all comes down to love,
Yeah.
right? And that's the other thing right now. If anything, the God I believe in is love, right?
That's
And we're even
beautiful.
told God is love.
God is love.
God is
So I
love. So
believe in
God is
love.
love. Like, I believe in that. And
Yeah.
when people say God is doing great things, dot, 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 I'm like, yeah, love is doing great things.
Always. Yes.
Yes. Yes. So
No, totally. And I would like to say a little bit about Donna too,
please
because
do. Yes. Yes.
when she passed away, I had started, going through deconstruction before that, but
Yeah.
um the way that as she got closer to passing away, like she would have these experiences when she was having chemo and she would share them with me. And, I think probably Leslie 20 years ago would have been like, oh my gosh, she's lost her mind. I don't know what to do. She's probably not going to go to heaven. But to me, I felt like she was closer to heaven than anything I'd ever seen.
Yes.
And I, at the same time, had lost another friend who was very, very evangelical and very, very like sad that she was dying because she really thought there was going to be a miracle. And she thought she was letting God down by giving up. I mean, it was a complete contrast to Donna passing away literally 2 months later. And well, my friend passed away 2 months later. And seeing both of them and the way that they dealt with end of life was incredibly, I don't even know the word. It was impactful to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to die in peace, surrounded by love, knowing that love was all that mattered, not with regret that I gave up or that God was mad at me or that people might not go to heaven because I didn't live my life right or I didn't say this. And I don't want regrets. I want to get to the end of my life. And I always tell my kids, I want to die the way Donna did. I mean, she died with so much peace. She was absolutely certain of where she was. There was no, it was just, and as she is, passing away, she's telling people, just love each other. Just love each other. That's all she cared about.
Yeah.
And that tells me something. That
Yeah.
told me a lot. And so I really miss her. I think about her every day.
Oh my gosh, I think about her so much. And for a while there, I would, because when I started the podcast, she was like the biggest cheerleader for broadening the narrative. And she was a guest on it to talk about how it all comes down to love. And she would listen to an episode and she would text me, I love that guest you had. Right. And then after she was gone and new episodes would come out, I'd go to like send her something. And then I'd be like, oh yeah, I can't. And also like I still feel her. Right.
Oh,
And
me too.
so,
100%. I was going to say, I feel closer to her now than I ever have. It's bizarre. Like she sees fully now. She sees completely. And I think she's just like, keep following that thread of love, Leslie. Keep doing it.
yes. Oh,
It's
I
great.
love that.
That's where it goes.
Yeah, and here's the thing, I used to be afraid of dying when I believed in a heaven and a
Me
hell.
too. Me
Now
too.
I don't believe in a heaven and hell, and I'm not afraid of death. I'm just
Right.
not.
Mm-mm.
I trust that when I'm supposed to, I will, and I don't need, and that, other people have talked about this too, and so I always try to give attribution to what I say when I say things if I know who said it, and
Right.
also there's, like, shared consciousness I now believe
Oh
in,
yeah,
like, have you
yeah.
heard of the
Oh,
Telepathy Tapes podcast? Have you
100.
listened to
I
that
haven't
podcast?
listened to it, but I do believe in the connection. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it's just like anything. So I did mushrooms, but this time last year, and I thought I had come up with something. I was like, everything is figure outable, like the phrase, everything is figure outable because of something I was struggling with. And I was like, but I don't even have to. I don't have to. I had such anxiety prior to doing mushrooms, and now my anxiety is like almost non-existent. And so I was like, because everything is figure outable, right? I rewired my brain through
Mhm.
the use of this psychedelic. And so new neural pathways were made. And I was so excited about this phrase and I kept saying it. And someone goes, "Oh, have you read that book?" And I was like, so there's a book where the whole word figure outable that I thought I'd come up with, right? But it's like any of these lessons that I was getting, it's like, oh, because it's part of the shared consciousness and our like
Yeah.
collective knowledge for since the beginning of time and all the yeah. So I know that sounds you're talking about like Leslie 20 years ago. I know like me even 5 years ago,
Oh,
some of the
yeah,
stuff
yeah, yeah.
that I'm saying right now would be like,
Like
what
just
is she on mushrooms right now? And it's like, I'm not. But I know
oh,
it sounds like it. And so
I
what
get
I'm
it.
trying to get to with that is like the fear is gone for me. And so what I
Mhm.
was going to say is that I know like plenty of people have said this in the sense of I don't need heaven as an incentive to love. I love for the joy of loving, period. And I don't need hell as an incentive to not be bad, right? I just don't like how I feel in my body when I don't love, right?
Mhm.
And so that is enough for me. And I'm just at such peace. Like I don't fear anything. I'm able to stand up for myself more now because I'm like, I mean, the worst this person can do is not be in my life anymore. And while that may be sad, if I don't want to lose this relationship, it's also, oh my gosh, on the mushroom, Leslie, there were so many times where I kept getting contradicting messages. So it would be like, everything matters. Like it all matters. And then nothing matters. Like in the sense of it doesn't matter. Like don't get caught up because it all is going to be gone anyway. Like when you're gone, like it won't even matter. So it's like everything matters and nothing matters. So like take the risk, love the people, do the whatever, And so
Love that.
yeah, so no fear, no fear. And yes, Miss Donna, just it we make things so complicated, but it all comes down to love. I
Mhm.
root back into that. That is such an anchor point for me. And then the second story, so talking about triggers and the whole being in the Christian world and still could like it's so funny. I spend so little time in real time with people that I forget people still think things that I used to think. And then
Same.
like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, oh yeah, that
That's
is a
right.
belief. Yeah.
What about that?
Ugh. And so, but I was like, so I don't want to say proud of myself, but like, I mean, yeah, proud of myself that my reaction with this one guy was to laugh and be like, ew, gross. Well, then today at work, so embarrassing. And I need to have a conversation with this person, and I will. But I was having lunch with two of my work friends, and one of them brings up that this one person that we know is now pregnant. And I think she's 21 and she got married like 9 months ago and now she's pregnant and she's in that world. And so this guy who's telling me about the person we know is telling this person who doesn't know any of these people or any of the belief system, saying, "Oh, yeah, it was part of this whole quiverful ideology." And he explained what quiverful is, and he was like, "And you're just having a lot of kids." And this other person is like, "Oh, I don't see what's wrong with that." And I looked right at him. Like I was triggered. It's like
Mhm.
I felt it in my body and I said, "You have no idea what it's like to be reduced to that you are here to produce progeny and that is the entire reason for your existence." And then
Mhm.
I stood up and I said, "I can't have this conversation." And I walked out. So I'm really proud of myself. Like
You
that
should
I
be. That's
yeah, and
amazing.
also this person is someone I really care about, and I don't feel like I, like, handled it like, I wasn't as gracious as I want to be,
Yeah.
because I understand, like, you talk about, like, the lens through which someone sees the world,
Mhm.
and it's like, he's not connected to this world, so I guess what he's hearing doesn't sound that bad. Like, sure, have kids. It's like, you don't know what you're talking about, and he just tends to have this posture of like he lacks the curiosity. He doesn't ask questions and just assumes that what he thinks is right and all those things. And it just really gets under my skin. But I also really like him as a human. So it's like hard. And
Yeah.
so then, but no, the fact that I could say, yeah, I'm not having this conversation and just leave it. I was like, I don't have to try to convince someone. I don't have to try to anything. I can remove myself from this situation.
Which is
And I
sometimes the best thing to do, and we forget that. Like, we think we just have to sit there and deal with no, you don't.
I
You know
don't
what?
even have
Walk
to
away,
go
and I
through it.
love what you just said, like, you don't love the way that you didn't show the compassion that you would like to, so you're gonna be able to go back to him, but in a better headspace,
Yes.
having dealt with that trigger. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what we do, guys. We walk away if we feel like we're going to do something that isn't in our, DNA so much, but more just a reaction,
Yeah.
instead of a response.
Yeah,
Um,
it felt out of alignment with how I
yes.
want to show up in the world, and so
Yes.
that is that it's like, I don't regret that I said something, and I don't regret leaving because 'cause you're right, like, I
Right.
can ruin myself,
Mhm.
and I don't have to expend energy trying to convince someone
Mm-mm.
of my viewpoint,
It's
and
never going to
also,
happen
it's
that way
like,
anyway.
I want to I want to be an inviting presence
Mhm.
for this person if they did have questions, and
Yeah.
I shut all of it down. And again, I look at everything I've been through, and when those protective mechanisms come up, it's because my body remembers what it was
Mhm.
like that I
Yeah.
needed to protect myself in these ways. And now I'm like, okay, I can protect myself in other ways. I can come up with other ways of handling conflict, and I am doing it, and it's not
Yeah.
perfect, and I am
Takes
making
time.
mistakes, and I'm learning from them, and I will repair
Yeah.
this relationship with this person, right? All of those things are true. So,
I
yeah,
love that.
yeah.
I was just talking with one of my clients. Yeah, I work with kid or people who are leaving religion and or asking questions as a deconstruction kind of coach, and they were talking about how upset they get when they get angry,
Mm,
and it just makes me so mad that I get angry, and I'm like, no, anger is like this neon sign that
mhm,
points to ungrieved grief. So
mm,
let it be a messenger for you. You don't have to be afraid of it. You don't have to let it control you. But
right.
hey, start asking yourself a question, just like you did. Like, oof, why is this bothering me? Like, oof. But sometimes you have to step away so that you
Mhm,
can get to those questions so that you don't respond in that anger, but instead are able to respond from a place of healing.
mhm,
And it was like it blew her mind. She couldn't
mhm,
even she was like, "I never ever thought about that." I'm like, "Yeah." Anytime I get mad, when I get the most mad is when I'm in the car and somebody cuts me off. There's
yeah,
so much injustice in that. I just feel like you're not thinking about anybody but yourself. I've got this
yeah,
person I love in this car with me.
yeah,
I don't know why I feel so violated. There must have been an instance in my life that I felt very
mhm,
violated and very like people didn't think I mattered. Like,
yeah,
shut up, just be seen, don't be heard. And I feel that in my body
yeah,
when I'm driving. So
yes,
to me, that's a beacon saying, hey, Leslie,
mhm,
you got to grieve some grief here because this ungrieved grief will turn into bitterness and resentment if you don't take care of that. So
mhm,
pretty
yeah.
interesting.
I love that. So in 2020, when everything shut down,
Mhm.
my oldest kiddo was in kindergarten, or 4K more specifically. And so we were doing school at home to finish out the rest of the school year. And I just started finding some like supplemental things. And one of those things was this like yoga teacher who was so delightful. And even yoga, ha. I did not, that would have been such a like,
5 years ago.
like,
Oh,
I remember hearing the pastor who we know saying something about, like, how yoga is demonic, basically, because
mhm,
it's all about, like, emptying your mind, and we should be filling our minds with the word of God. So,
mhm,
anyways, yoga, at in 2020, I was like, I found this little thing, and she was talking about emotions, and I wish that I had heard this as a kid, where she said, "Your emotions imagine you were the pond, and your emotions are the fish in the pond." And every fish belongs there, but no fish should take over the whole pond. And you are not the fish. You are the pond. So be the pond. And oh, but she was like British, so she's like, be the pond, be the pond,
I love it.
and so I just have held on to that. That was
That's
transformative for
beautiful.
me in my it's like anything that I'm teaching my kids, it's things I missed out on.
Mhm.
And I'm hoping that they're getting more tools for themselves to help them kind of mitigate some of the challenges that I've had, because it's like they're still gonna have challenges, they're gonna still have things to work through, and
Yeah,
hopefully they'll have more tools in their kit than I had at their ages.
they
So,
will.
yeah.
100% they will. I mean, it's what a gift you're giving them going through this while they're still under your roof. All my kids were gone by the time I woke up. And now,
Mm.
I spend a lot of time saying, I'm sorry. And they're like, Mom, it's fine. You always just had the right motive. Your heart was always for love. Everything you taught us was because you thought it was true and you were scared and you loved us so much, like we don't look at it. My kids are so mature. I'm like, where did you get this from? I'm not mature.
Yeah.
Or at least, I wasn't. I was a child when I had
Mm.
them and I was just doing
Yeah.
what I was told. And so it's just I just think it's such a gift you're giving your kids to be able to let
Mhm.
them find their path instead of putting them on one.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, our oldest, we did the catechisms and all that, right, while we were still in the church, and again, I don't see anything wrong with those things
Yeah.
in and of themselves,
Right.
and, but the way we were doing it and our motivations were, even though it was coming from a place of love, it was still
Absolutely.
within that certain mindset, and so, yeah, and then the youngest is like, "God who?" No, I'm just kidding, but but no, it is really funny. They have very different experiences. The oldest remembers things that the younger 2 don't have a whole lot of context for. And yeah, and they know that I would consider myself an atheist, and, like, they've even heard me, like, one of my daughter, I was having a conversation with her and one of her friends, and the friend was like, "What church do y'all go to?" And we had started attending this church in Hawaii in, like, 2021 maybe, online, and so I said, "Well," and I don't attend it anymore. It's an amazing church and a beautiful group of people, a redemptive arc in my story.
Mm,
Like, my first book, As for Mary's Family, opens with the intro is me being spiritually abused at the church that I left in 2019, and the
mm,
outro to the book is that pastor from the church in Hawaii inviting me to use the Sunday morning sermon time to interview me about my church experiences and my spiritual abuse and to talk about my book, right? And so, I was still writing the book and I didn't know how to end it, and that became the ending of the
oof.
book, because it
Oh,
just gave
that's
this
so cool.
bookend of how a pastor in a church should be showing up in the world, right?
And gave you a voice, a
Yeah.
woman on
Yeah.
Sermon Sunday to be
Yes.
able to share about hurts that you experienced, and that takes to me, that's so strong. That's strength.
Mhm.
That's faith.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
faith that you're so afraid is gonna unravel if people hear it differently,
Yeah.
that to me is not a strong faith. That is a very weak faith.
Yeah.
If you hear something and it'll just automatically take you in a different direction, well, then maybe you need to be looking at that belief more than like the thing that you're so afraid of. Because
Yeah.
that's to
Yeah.
me, and that just shows me so much integrity in what he's doing
Mm.
with
Yes.
that church. That's amazing.
And I loved this one Sunday. It was one of our first Sundays doing the church. He asked the kids to bring a stuffed animal for like the kids' time because he still prioritized virtually having a time for the kids to gather around. And so he had them bring a stuffed animal or a blanket or something that brings them security. So they did that and they got to unmute and share about it. And he said, "I'm just going to cut my sermon short and we're just going to do this for a longer time today, like listen to the kids." And so they were sharing about their different things. And then he said he likened that to the comfort that the Holy Spirit brings, right? Like that was the point of it. And I sat with that thinking, wow, for all the talk of children are a blessing from the Lord that I heard within the Quiverful tradition,
Mhm.
the fact that at the one church that I went to, the children's director had asked the pastor if the kids could sing the songs they'd learned at VBS on stage and being told, "Oh, we're not that kind of church."
To hear from children. Hmm.
Right. And so it's like, "Oh, so you want us to have all the babies, but, like, we
Keep
don't
them in the
need to,
nursery.
like" Right, right. And so it's just really interesting. Again, just all these experiences that were redeemed or that have this to show that when I critique the evangelical Christian establishment, it's not because I'm saying I hate Christians and I hate
Yeah,
churches. That's not
exactly.
it at all, because I am able to point to plenty of examples of pastors and churches that come from a place of, I know that these other ones would say that it's loving, but my friend Marla Taviano, I don't know if you know her, but
I know her online.
okay, oh my
Yes.
god, I adore this woman, but
Yeah.
she was like, "Love doesn't feel like hate." Like, that's one of her things is like, "Love
Mhm.
doesn't feel like hate." And so, yeah, And Marla, I just have to give her a shout out. She was so pivotal for me and her books. She's got like this poetry trilogy, Unbelieve, and it's like poems on the path to becoming a heretic. And she just kind of like owns it. You think I'm a
Well,
heretic?
I
Cool,
mean,
cool, cool.
at some
Yeah.
point you do. You're just like, okay, well, in your
Yeah, you
eyes,
have
I get
to
it.
in the
No, I
like,
get it. I would have thought I
yeah.
was one too back
Yes,
then,
yes, yeah, and then she's got Jaded is the next one, and then the last one is Whole, and
Mm.
it's just this really beautiful arc for her with her deconstruction of all that, and, like, she's got so many poems that I love, but there's one where she talks about I might have even let's see if I was trying to prepare a little for our conversation because my
Uh-huh.
neurodivergent brain was
Yeah.
like, "I need to have some kind of
What if we
plan,"
don't have something to talk about? Trust
and
me, I can pull it out of you. I love
oh
I
my
love
gosh.
hearing people's journeys. I ask all the
Yeah.
questions, so
Yeah. Well, so I had a couple of poems from her that she had written, and one of them was about why would I land when I have wings? I want to
mhm.
say it said something about like, why on earth would I land when I have wings? Oh, here it is. First of all, she has this one called The One Thing I'm Not. And she wrote, oh my gosh, I can do this. Lost means you don't know where you are or how to get back where you came from. I know both of those things. I'm just not going back, and I don't know what lies ahead, but whatever I am, I'm not lost. As like
Mm.
a rebuttal to people being concerned about
Oh,
her.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the other one was, where have I landed? That's the thing. I can fly now. And damn, what a glorious view. You can see so much from up here. Wow. And dang, there are other birds too. I might descend a light from time to time, but why would I land in any one place for very long at all when I have wings? I've always, always had wings. And so, yeah, I love how she has approached her journey, and she's been someone who I've learned a lot from.
That's
And yeah,
beautiful.
and
The the
yeah,
word I think that has kind of, I don't know, that I've sort of landed on as far as how I define love is
yeah,
safety. Is do I feel
mhm,
safe? And so
yeah,
that is kind of one of the things that I do is I bring people to, like when you think of a belief that gives you anxiety, clearly you're not feeling safe. So
yeah,
is this belief rooted in love? Like
mhm,
think about it. The
yeah,
safety, I need to feel safe. I need to feel like there's nothing that I can do that would separate
mhm,
me from God. Like the
mhm.
Bible says. But then the preaching says, but then there are lots of things that can separate you, just FYI.
Yes.
It's
Well,
like,
and
wait,
then
is it all or nothing? I don't
right.
know.
And then again, if we interchange those words and switch it out for there's nothing that will separate you from love.
Yeah.
Like, that's true. Nothing
Mhm.
separates us from love.
Except ourselves.
And yes,
We do
right.
that.
And for me, so much of my journey with love and self-love is realizing how I was looking outside of myself for the thing that I had inside of me all along. It just needed to be tended to and uncovered and nurtured and all of that, right? And so letting go of what people think about me and the external validations and all of that,
Is that
still an
not the
ongoing.
most but isn't it the most I never thought I would let go of that.
Yeah.
And I think you get inoculated from people pleasing, um,
Mhm.
when you start speaking out about something that doesn't please everybody. It's like
Yes.
all of a sudden I'm like, "Oh, wait, I'm still alive. Wait,
Yes.
I can still
You
breathe."
Yes, you flex that muscle, right? It's kind of like I just keep and I'm able to just keep going, right?
Yeah.
So, I
You're
just
lost, man. You don't like me now? Okay, bye. I'm
yeah.
sorry, because you're gonna miss out on the best version of me. Because I am the
Yeah.
happiest, I am the most peace-filled, I am so filled with love and joy and like, it is so much better now for me because I'm not afraid anymore,
Yeah.
like you said. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, "Ugh, you're gonna miss out on the best Leslie that there ever was, so I'm sorry for you, but
Yeah. Yes, exactly, exactly. And it's just making peace with being misunderstood.
yeah."
And that was something that was so connected to the people pleasing for me was this over explaining of where I was coming from because I don't want to be misunderstood, which I read somewhere that for those who, because I didn't go into the fact that I have a lot of trauma in my childhood, right? So that sort of I write in my first book, the tagline, the subtitle is leaving the toxic religion I was groomed for. And so I traced my family of origin back to the trauma and how what I was taught about what love feels like, like people who loved me were harming me. And so my body learned to associate kind of like the mice, if you've heard of the thing where the mice were raised in this chaotic environment and some were raised in this serene environment. Right. But it's like the ones that were raised in the chaotic environment were given the opportunity to go to a serene environment, but they chose the chaotic one because again, brains, right? And
Yes. Yeah.
what feels familiar. And I had to
It's
realize
safe.
that's where as familiar's family was
Yeah.
because it was like, oh, this church environment is as familiar as the family that I grew up in.
Right.
My body recognizes it. And in that familiarity, I've confused that with safety, and
Yeah.
I'm not actually safe here.
It's
And
just
so,
familiar. Yeah.
yes,
There's a
yes,
difference between safety and familiarity.
yes.
And but you don't see that initially. And it's really scary coming out of it. And I tell people all the time that, of course I believed the theology that I wasn't enough in my own right,
Mm,
that I needed to have Jesus cover me because I was
yes,
so disgusting.
yeah.
Because I grew up with, a person in my life who rejected me a lot.
Mm,
And I always felt like I wasn't enough for this person that really needed to give me
yeah,
unconditional love. And so that's why it was so easy for me to go, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Of course, God
yeah.
would be of course, that's what love is. It's conditional,
Mhm.
a
Yeah.
and it's conditional on me like, me living up to and in addition to me, you need to have this in order to be received." And so
Yeah.
when you start to understand the why behind some of the
Yeah.
decisions that you make, and you start
Yeah.
to understand that that's what I thought was normal.
Yeah. Well, and for me, it was like so this was the thing I was gonna say, I heard someone talk about, there was danger in being misunderstood. I could be punished severely if I was misunderstood. So then I
Mm,
overcompensated by the people pleasing and making sure to over explain, and here's where I'm coming from, and da 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 da.
yeah.
And now I can just there's Trevor Hall, if you know him, a musical artist, has this song and the old story. And it's like, you just gotta let that old story go and let the new river flow into your
Mm,
heart, and it's a start. And so it's like, yeah, that is so much of the work. Like, I talk about the mushroom and what a huge impact it had on me, but I think it was so impactful because I'd already been doing a ton of work ahead of going on the trip. I set an intention of approaching this medicine therapeutically and medicinally rather than simply recreationally, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with someone approaching it
right, right.
recreationally, but that wasn't my intention. And then on the backside, I've continued to take those new thoughts that came to me and the new connections that were made and to solidify them
Mm,
because it can be so easy to fall back into old thought patterns. It's like, I got to let the old stories go and I have to lean into the love. And I love to say, so gosh, so Leslie, I'm like, I'm just gonna say things, and if you need to edit them
no,
out, like
no,
edit
I
them out.
this is your journey,
But
girl. There's
part of
no
my
right or
journey
wrong. It's
part of
gone.
my journey was realizing that I am queer and coming out as queer in 20 oh gosh, the years just all blend
I
together.
didn't know this.
Oh, yes, yes.
Oh, wow. Okay,
And
that's
so my
cool.
my book that came out this summer, are
Uh-huh.
we still in the same year? 2025? Yes.
25, yeah.
This summer, I had a book come out called Coming of Age and Coming Out, and so it's coming of age stories, and then me coming out is first is queer, like, that was my first coming out story, was realizing and owning, like, my sexuality, and so again, I couldn't have explored all of that if I was
Mhm.
still in the spaces that I was
No.
in.
Mm-mm.
And so it was so funny. I had a conversation with my mom after I was looking for beta readers for the earliest version of the book and had posted about it. And one of my aunts saw it and tells my mom. And so my mom and I were talking on the phone, and she was like, and also, Leslie, I would say, even though I don't like to put labels on myself, even saying like I am queer, right? Like it's hard for me because I'm trying to live in not saying I am anything, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
yeah,
The
I
world
want to
would
say
say
I
you
am
are.
love, but
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, so I also realized like, like gosh, this is going to take it even a step further, Leslie. So buckle up and your
I'm
listeners better
buckled.
put
Oh,
their
girl.
belts on. Because then I was like, "Oh, I think I'm non-monogamous," and so I started exploring that, like, can I be in just one relationship with one person? Now, right now, here's where I am right now. I am celibate fully, completely. I don't like, and that's where I am right now. And so I'm just honoring wherever I am and flowing with where I am.
The flow. Yeah.
So, but during that like period of being non-monogamous and coming out as queer, my aunt saw this post, tells my mom about it. So my mom and I are on the phone and she says, "Can I ask you something?" Sorry, let me back up. She had told me early in the conversation that she'd been throwing up again because like she would get in these bouts of anxiety or something and throw up. So she told me that and I was like, "Oh, that's awful." And then she was like, "Can I ask you something?" And I told her like, "You can always ask me anything." And the end of that sentence is I don't have to answer,
Yeah.
but it's like people can ask me anything, like
Feel free to
ask
ask me
away.
whatever.
Um, and so then she was like, she said, "Are you queer?"
Oh gosh.
And I was like, "Y- yeah, when I had no idea how she knew, I didn't realize that my broadening the narrative Instagram had synced to my personal Facebook. And so that's where
Oh
like brought me to
no.
her Facebook. And so I just said, and here's the other thing, Leslie. When I do decide to answer someone's questions, try not to over explain now. I answer the question they've asked. So she asked, "Are you queer?" And I said, "Yes." And that's all I said because that's all I need to say, right? That's all I have. I don't even have to say anything, but should I choose to answer the question, I just have to answer the question they asked. So I said,
Right.
"Yeah, we're on the phone." And I'm like, and she can't do anything to me. And I'm an adult, right? And so I was just like,
Yes.
"Yeah." And she's like, "Oh, what?"
Hmm.
And or maybe I'm sorry, first, let me back up. The first question was, "Are you in an open marriage?" That was the first question. And I said,
Ugh.
and I was like, "Oh, yeah." And she was like, "What?"
Oh,
And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, and then she said, "And what's this about rainbows and stuff? Are you queer?" And I was like, "I am." That was and she was like, "That's why I've been throwing up again."
oh
And
no.
so, but Leslie, it didn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
That would have
Yeah.
destroyed me for my mom to not accept me as who I am. And I was able to just say to her, "Listen, I I love and accept myself as who I am. Like, you don't have to agree with who I am and you don't have to accept who I am, but I love and accept myself for who I am." And there's just such a peace in that of
Mhm.
that. And it just shows how far I've come in my journey because my mom's disapproval would have shattered me
Yeah.
before. And
Right.
now I'm like, hey, her disapproval is for her to work through. That's her work to do,
Yeah.
right? That's not mine to take on. And
That's so
that's,
healthy. I love this. I love
yeah.
this. So many people want to change for that person, or,
Mhm.
oh, I just won't talk about it, or they
Yeah.
kind of protect other people from themselves. And
Mhm.
see, when you do that, you're actually rejecting a part of yourself.
Yes, and I was
You
like, "I don't
know,
wanna reject any part of me, I don't wanna abandon any other
you've been
part of
doing that
me,"
long enough.
and that's exactly, and
Mhm.
that's been a part of the journey too, is that abandonment wound, and
Mhm.
realizing that in the name of keeping certain people in my life, I've been like, to keep them from leaving me, I'd been leaving parts of myself and
Yep.
exiling them all this time, and now I trust that the people who are for me will be for me, and
Mhm.
not everyone is for me, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It really, really is, even on the days that that's hard. And so, yeah, I mean, because I know, like, so I do have another podcast I was doing called "So You Think You Can Date," and, because I was like, here I am, this millennial mom who's polyamorous and out here dating for the first time in 15 years, what can go wrong, you know? And it was like a
A
lot could
lot.
go wrong.
Yes. Yes.
And it was interesting, and so, like, so the tagline of my coming of age and coming out book is stories of repressed and reclaimed sexual desire, and
Mhm.
so for me, I got married when I was 20, and I don't regret any part of my journey. I
No, of
don't.
course
I
not.
just
Yeah.
don't because I'm like, it all made me who I am.
Mhm.
And also, I can realize that I missed out on a lot of things that now I would like the opportunity to explore and learn for myself and
Right.
all of that. And so that led to this like dating experience for me. And now I can say, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I've learned that I would rather be celibate right now.
Yes.
And so, because what I want, I know what I want now. And I'm just not going to settle for anything that's not that. I was taught that everything that I want is bad, if it's not these certain things. And now I'm like, oh, there's so much that I want that is good. And it's good that I want it. And yes, I do. And I have had to discern the difference between repression and self control, and to realize that, again, I hold to certain things. And Paul let me know that, hey, all things are permissible, but that doesn't mean I should be doing it all. And I've learned that, but I needed to learn that. I needed to have my journey,
You
and
need
I
to
made a
walk it
lot
out.
of mistakes. And I know, and I know what
Mhm.
I want and what I don't want. And so, yeah, and I don't know, and I think it's important for my kids to see me chasing the things and building the
Figuring
life
this
that
out.
I want, and for them to know that they can do that for themselves too, even if it is outside of, you know,
The
what
norm or what
society
yeah.
expects, or
Mhm.
yeah, to know that, "Hey, man, when I heard you talking," I can't remember again which conversation it was,
Yeah.
Melinda or Michael, but also, PS, you're so good at this.
Oh,
Like,
thank you.
I was sitting with it and I wrote down, "Wow, she has such a gift for holding people's stories with a lot of tenderness." And
Oh, thank
so,
you.
yeah, so as I was listening and you talked about, like your own kids, and so the idea of, like, God wouldn't be like, "Oh, well, you don't believe in me, so I'm
Yeah,
throwing you in hell," you
yeah.
know? And that was something for me with, like, the whole LGBTQ conversation. Before I realized that I was queer, I came to terms with, I would never like, I would I get why the Christians who hold to the idea of, like, disowning your kid or excluding your kid if they're in that community, because they think that their God would do that, right?
Yeah,
And
they're
so,
scared. They're scared.
yeah, and so I had to just say, I and again, I at that point would have still said I was a Christian, but there was some disconnect for me in that, because I was like, any God that would expect me to disown my child is not a God I want to worship. Just
Mhm.
isn't. And so that was a big part for me too,
Hmm.
was realizing, like, God, like, I love these kids so much. I would like
There's nothing they
nothing.
could do. I
Nothing.
don't care. I mean, I'm never gonna stop being their mom. There even if
Yeah.
I wanted to, I couldn't because
Yeah.
it just is what it is. You know what I mean? And I just feel like that's, if there is a God, I believe there is, but I don't think it's like this man up in heaven with a
Mhm.
beard, like, smacking us on the wrist when we do things wrong. I feel like God is consciousness that connects all of
Mhm.
us. I feel like it's the soil that we're planted in. And
Mhm.
and I think it's just I really am starting to understand a little bit more of Jesus's message. To me, what he
Mhm.
was saying is when you don't believe you're connected to God,
Mhm.
that is sin because it leads
Mhm.
to desperate things. It makes you feel less than. And I think his
Mhm.
whole message was just the kingdom of God is in you. It's
Yeah.
already here. And you need
Yeah.
to walk in this reality. And when you do, you can have an abundant life.
Yes.
You can live
Mhm.
just like me. You can do greater things than me because there's way more of you. I
Yeah.
think, and that to me
Mhm.
is that Christ consciousness, which
Mhm.
I know some people are like, ooh, that's woo woo. I know,
Mhm.
I would have thought the same thing, but
Yeah.
it really does make sense though. And it's not like I have put the Bible away. I just
Mhm.
see it from a different lens. I see when I
Mhm.
read it, I
Yeah.
see it from a lens of love instead of judgment and fear.
Mhm. Yeah.
And when you read that same exact book, you get the exact same like my message now that brings me peace and joy and less fear and all of that is from the same book that I
Mhm.
was reading that was giving me giving me fear and judgment and anxiety and depression, all the things. It's
Mhm.
the same book.
Yes. Yep. I mean, Rachel Held Evans, she was also huge for me, and she
Yeah.
talked
Oh,
about, you can look at the Bible and you can find one of
right.
two things. You can find verses to use as weapons, or you
Mhm.
can find verses to use as a balm, BALM, for healing. So, like, which way do you want to do it? And I love how she talked about, like, we're all out here cherry picking. Like, don't pretend, like,
Yeah, yeah,
but like, what is, if you want to call it that, right? And so it's like,
right.
okay, but then for what purpose? And man, Ebony Janice, I don't know if you know who Ebony Janice
Mm-mm.
is, but I had interviewed her. There was a question that she asked that she had pulled from another theologian, but it was like, who does it benefit for me to believe it this way?
Mhm.
Um, And so that has been such an interesting conversation to come
And
back to.
Buddha.
And even you brought this up of like, I create hell
Mhm,
when I live in these
mhm,
ways, right? And so I think that, yeah, we make our own hell around us, and it's hell to be around us when we're
and
living in these certain ways. And then we
desperation.
create heaven around us when we realize that it's all about love
Yes.
and that it comes back to that and that nothing separates us from love and how interconnected we are. And that I don't know if you heard of the Truth's Table podcast.
Mm-mm.
That was a really impactful podcast for me early on. There were 3 hosts of it, 3 Black women. So when I was saying that my journey started with questioning racism,
Mhm.
and then it went into the patriarchy because they talked about how specifically as Black women, they were harmed in white
Mm.
evangelical churches. So
Wow.
Akimini Uwan was one of them, and I just loved hearing her talk one time about, like, my well-being is wrapped up in your well-being, right,
Mm,
and vice versa. So it's like when we remember that,
yeah.
that if it's actually good for me, then it's going to be good for the collective because my healing will have ripple effects for everyone else.
Yes.
And not to get distracted by short-sighted, what seems like this is going to be beneficial for me. If it's just a short term, I'm thinking specifically with like, politically things that happen from the side of thing. And I know there's stuff on both sides,
Mhm.
but when you think about it's like, I get it. Or from like, you know, I hate to say it, it's mainly white men,
Yeah.
but not exclusively, right?
No, definitely
But
not.
those who hold all this power, they think that it's good for them, but they
Mhm.
don't understand how it's actually harming them in the long term because it's disconnecting them from not just the rest of humanity, but from their own humanity. And as they
Mm.
disconnect from their own humanity in the pursuit of power and privilege and possessions and all of this thing, right? Political clout.
They're missing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're
And it's
missing it.
killing all of us, but it's bent on killing them too. It's going to destroy them too. It is harming them, even if they don't see it. And I realize, yeah, I am not for everyone. And
Mm-mm.
I get it. And I am a lot. And I bring a ton of energy when I'm in that headspace. And
Yeah.
also, I've welcomed in my more of a hermit mode and really embraced that because I thought I had to be this extrovert for God all the time. And
Mhm.
now I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, sometimes I like to just like curl up and read a book and
Yes.
be alone. And that's good too.
I love that you
But
found that. I found that on this
yeah,
journey too. Like, I think I was like, I have to be out there because I was so afraid people were going to go to hell. Like, I needed to be
yeah.
on. I might be the only Bible that people ever read, and
Mhm.
they probably met me because I'm supposed to save them from hell, And
Yeah.
now I'm like, I don't know that I was ever as much of an extrovert as I thought I was. I mean, I'm
Right. Same.
definitely an extrovert, but I find that I need to go away from people for a while to sort of refuel. To
Yes.
to
Yep.
plug in to stillness, which
Yeah.
is not something I was very good at before. So,
Yes.
that's a whole new thing.
Yep.
It's kinda fun,
Same. Same. Yeah.
but
And yeah, so just like the joy of loving for the joy of it.
mm,
And then oh my gosh, I am blanking on her name. Andrea Gibson, who passed
mhm,
away, the poet laureate from Colorado, was on the We Can Do Hard Things podcast.
yeah,
And they re-aired that episode. And oh my gosh,
so
when
good.
I listened to that, I can't recommend it enough. Like she was just on this, and again, she was dying, right? And the way that just like Miss Donna
Mhm,
having such peace about it, Andrea Gibson. But she talked about how she had this experience where she felt like she was like it was like a close to death experience. And I don't remember if it was connected to like some breath work she was doing or what it was, but she said that what left her was need.
mhm,
Need left her. She said, even my relationships, they were no longer there because I needed them. They were there because I love loving.
mhm,
And now I have had to, when I talked about how I'm not dating right now, it's because I had to learn through some pretty intense heartbreak that not everyone needs access to my love. And even though I give it freely, it flows freely from me. And I
mhm,
don't give it in order to get anything and all that, right? Like, and also, if someone tells you that they are a taker, who is it? Maya Angelou who said, like, when people show you who they are the first time, believe
believe them.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like when someone tells you they are a taker, he is letting you know that he is going to take and take and take from you, right? And so there are all these things that now I'm like, yeah, I love for the joy of loving and I love to love. And also I have really worked on more discernment and more boundaries around that love,
Yeah.
so that it can flow. And I do believe that no love is ever wasted, and that all the love
No.
I did pour into that person will come back to me, right?
Yes.
It will. I
Mhm.
believe that because I gave that love from a really pure place, you
Right.
know?
Right. Yeah.
And so, yeah.
I feel like today, I don't know, I just saw a new Nicki. Like you're so free and you're just so happy and you have so much joy just oozing out of you. And thank you for sharing it with us today. And I know you didn't intend to tell me everything you told me, but I am actually really glad you did. I think you're going to connect with more people than you realize, just by being yourself. And if they didn't like what you said at all, why didn't you like it? What about that made you feel that way? She's just expressing who she is. You know what I mean? We can
Well,
learn from everything.
yeah, and I love what you said, like, it can't like, when we are authentic, right? And
Mhm.
this is a part of my authentic self,
Yeah,
is
yeah,
being able to own who I am and what I'm working
yeah.
through and all of that, and so, yeah, authenticity, that's,
I love it.
something that I root back into, so thank you so much for letting me share my journey, and,
Of course.
yeah,
Well, Nikki
what a
Pappas,
treat.
I honor your journey. I think it's beautiful. Thank you for sharing it with my listeners. You guys can find her. Do you still do Broadening the Narrative?
No, I haven't been recording episodes,
Okay.
right now, I've been on a bit of a hiatus from that, but
Okay.
yeah,
But there's
um
plenty of episodes out, Broadening the Narrative, and then she's got a few books out. I'll just go ahead and leave links in the show notes so you can catch up with her and kind of follow her journey. So thank you, Miss Nikki.
Thank you so much.
Of course. It was good to catch up. Mwah.
Yes,
Love you.
so lovely. I love you too.